Tokyo, 1958. A crowd gathers for something no one in Japan has ever seen, an animated feature film in color. The movie, The Tale of the White Serpent. The studio, Toei Animation. It's a bold move, the first of its kind. And it all started with two men, Kenzo Masaoka, the father of anime, and Sanae Yamamoto, a pioneer of educational cartoons. Together, they dreamed of building a Japanese Disney, a place where animation could be more than ads or propaganda, where it could become art. Their idea? An animation studio that would rival the West, powered by Japanese folklore, stylized movement, and radical young talent. They called it Toei Doga. Decades later, that little studio would become a giant. They'd launch Dragon Ball, One Piece, Sailor Moon, Slam Dunk. They'd train Miyazaki and Takahata before Studio Ghibli ever existed. They'd help invent the entire anime industry as we know it. But back in the 50s, they were just animators with a dream, working with ink, cells, and a mascot shaped like a dancing cat. So how did Toei go from fairy tale musicals to anime empire? To find out, we need to go back to where it all began. Before Naruto ran with his arms behind his back, before Goku powered up for 15 straight episodes before anime was even called anime, there was a company called Nihon Doga. The year was 1948. Japan was rebuilding, paper was scarce, and two visionaries had a dream. Kenzo Masaoka, a pioneer in early Japanese animation, and Sanae Yamamoto, a children's book illustrator with a soft spot for stories. Together, they founded Nihon Doga, literally Japan Animation, humble name, big ambition. 8 years later, in 1956, the studio was bought out by a film company called Toei wanted to become the Disney of the East, so they renamed the studio Toei Doga and poured money into making Japan's first major animated films. 1 year later, they dropped a bombshell, not an actual bomb, a movie. The White Snake Enchantress, 1958, Japan's first color anime film, and it was gorgeous. They built a massive animation campus in Tokyo and filled it with young, eager artists. They believed in teams, not lone geniuses in fairy tales, not samurai dramas, and in drawing, a lot Toei was less about sketchy backroom productions and more about lush, painterly, theatrical animation. They were chasing Walt Disney's dream, but giving it a Japanese soul. Through the late 50s and early 60s, Toei kicked off what some call the Golden Age, a period when anime wasn't just for kids. It was culture, and Toei? They were right at the center of it all. But if you think this is the peak of the story, wait until we get to the space pirates, alien monkeys, and magical schoolgirls. In the 1960s, something big was changing, not just in Japan, but on the screen too. I had made its name with animated films, fairy tales, legends, heroic kids on quests, but a new medium was knocking loudly. It was television, and it was hungry for content in 1963. Astro Boy aired on TV. Not made by Toei, but it changed everything suddenly. Kids weren't buying movie tickets. They were glued to their living room screens. Toei had a choice, stay in theaters or chase the future. They chose TV. And in 1966, they made magic literally. Sally the Witch, one of the first ever magical girl, shows a cheerful schoolgirl with secret powers. It was a hit, and it quietly launched a whole new genre. Yes, this is the grandmother of Sailor Moon. Then came Mazinger Z in 1972. A boy pilots a giant robot. From inside the head boom, super robot genre is born explosions, catchphrases, cool toys. Millions of kids hooked, dozens of imitators followed. But here's the twist. Toei wasn't just making new genres, they were also training the next generation of anime gods. Young artists like Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata both started at Toei. So did Yoichi Kotabe, who would later design Pikachu. Toei was an animation bootcamp equal parts grind and glory through the 1970s and 80s. Toei expanded, they moved from fairy tales to fistfights, from princesses to powered-up warriors. TV gave them speed, reach, and a bigger playground, and Toei ran with it into living rooms, lunchboxes, and eventually
everywhere.
In 1986, a spiky-haired kid flew across Japanese screens on a golden cloud and changed everything. Dragon Ball wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural shockwave. Kids across Japan, and eventually the world, were glued to the screen, watching Goku punch, grow up, and scream his way into anime history. Toei had just struck gold. Then, in 1992, something magical happened, literally. Sailor Moon transformed the shoujo genre into a global pop icon. Schoolgirls turned superheroes. Glitter moon tiaras and cosmic romance suddenly mattered. Girls had their Goku now, and the merchandise flew off shelves just as fast. Toei now had two secret weapons, nostalgia and toys, and they weren't done. By 1999, One Piece launched, and just refused to end. Pirates, devil fruits, and tear-jerking flashbacks. 25 years later, it's still sailing strong. Then came Pretty Cure in 2004. Each year, a new cast, new outfits, new theme. Same goal, keep kids watching and buying. It wasn't just anime anymore, it was a factory, a franchise machine, and Toei was running it with precision. They didn't just make shows, they made ecosystems. And if you wanted to play in their world, you had to buy in. By the time the 2000s rolled around, Toei Animation wasn't just a Japanese studio anymore. They were quietly building an empire on every continent. They opened offices in the Philippines, then came Europe, then Los Angeles, then Shanghai, then Hong Kong. Each one like a little outpost of anime, gently taking over the globe, one Dragon Ball Z dub at a time. Today, Toei shows air in over 100 countries, from Peru to Poland, from Thailand to Turkey. There's a pretty good chance your childhood had at least one Toei character in it. And they weren't just exporting shows, they were making them with the world too. Ever heard of Miraculous Ladybug? That came from a co-production with France. A Toei meets Paris Magical Girl mashup that became a global hit. In China, Toei teamed up with Tencent, one of the biggest tech companies on the planet. And over in Korea, they partnered with local studios to create new IPs that blended anime style with K-pop energy. Toei had become more than a studio. They were a bridge between countries, between art styles, between industries. And in the streaming era, they didn't just adapt, they thrived. Netflix came knocking, so did Crunchyroll. Before long, Toei shows were everywhere. Even their deep back catalog, forgotten gems from the 70s and 80s, got rediscovered by a whole new generation. Licensing companies love Toei because with every new Dragon Ball spin-off, every new One Piece arc came a tidal wave of toys, shirts, mobile games, cereal boxes, entire theme parks. Toei had quietly done the impossible. They made anime not just Japanese, but global. And it all started with a studio that once made color cartoons about jungle kings. But wait, how did they even get here? Who were the visionaries behind this global takeover? Well, for that, we have to rewind the tape. Back to a young animator named Kenzo and a woman named Sanai, who helped put Toei on the path to conquering the world. The look of Toei Animation didn't come from a boardroom. It came from a single man with a pencil and a dream. His name was Yasuji Mori, a quiet powerhouse who shaped the studio's entire visual identity. Mori believed animation should be clean but expressive. He gave Toei its bold shapes, its rounded edges, its human warmth before Ghibli had their house style. Toei had theirs. Thanks to him, you could spot it in the flow of hair, the bounce of a step, the twinkle of an eye. This style carried Toei through decades of stories. But then the 90s arrived, and with it, the digital wave. Toei wasn't scared. They built their own software. First came KDAS for digital ink and paint, then RETAS, a full digital production system ahead of its time. Animators started using digital storyboards. They remastered old films in HD, bringing the classics back to life. And when CGI hit hard in the 2000s, Toei said, okay, let's try that too. But they never threw the old magic away instead. They layered new tools over old wisdom today. Toei is even exploring AI auto-coloring frames, AI-assisted layouts, smart asset libraries. Yet even as the tools change that soft human touch, the soul of Mori's style still glows in every frame because Toei doesn't just evolve, they transform without losing who they are. Right now, Toei Animation is a giant in the anime world. In fiscal year 2024, they pulled in over 100 billion yen. That's roughly $750 million. It's not just from making shows or movies anymore. In fact, licensing their characters and brands earns them even more cash than the animation itself. Just look at the numbers One Piece film, Red, and the first Slam Dunk smashed records everywhere they went. These movies don't just make money, they become cultural events, drawing fans from all over the world. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Toei's library is massive. Over 13,000 TV episodes and nearly 270 films. That's the biggest anime library on the planet. A treasure trove of stories spanning decades. But Toei's reach goes far beyond screens. They run events, shops, mobile games, and apps from collectible toys to smartphone games. Toei has crafted a total media empire. They don't just make anime, they build entire worlds fans can dive into again and again today. Toei Animation is more than just a studio. It's a powerhouse, a trendsetter, and a storyteller. And with every new project, they keep proving one thing. The heart of anime beats strongest when it's a Toei story. Toei Animation is the studio behind the studio, the name behind the names. You do know they helped launch Dragon Ball into the stratosphere, helped Sailor Moon sparkle across the globe, and gave One Piece the wind it needed to sail forever. They didn't just create anime hits, they created the idea of what an anime hit even looks like. Shonen, magical girls, transformation sequences, friendship-powered finishers. Toei helped turn all of that into a blueprint. This is the place where Ghibli's founders once cut their teeth before they built their own legends. This is the studio that took Saturday morning cartoons and gave them Super Saiyan power levels. They trained generations of animators, built franchises brick by brick, and kept innovating. With each passing decade today, they're still doing it. Still mixing hand-drawn heart with digital precision, still creating heroes who stretch, sparkle, scream, and save the world. And here's the best part. You don't have to know the name, Toei, to know what they've done. If you've ever watched anime, you've already lived in their world, because Toei isn't just a studio, it's a universe. And chances are, you're already part of it.